And welcome back to another tutorial by me, Melissa, from the University of Florida. This tutorial is going to be a more advanced tutorial. We already have everything set down on our canvas. If you're wondering why there's another extra piece over here that's not drawn on, I'm just going to add another image to here. So we're just going to work with this part of the canvas right now. I have everything mapped out. We did the transfer process that I showed earlier in a previous tutorial. If you want to know about that, check that out. Now, this is the image we're working with. You can see the different colors and aspects, and I'm going to assume, because this is an advanced tutorial, that you know about how to mix paint. We are going to be using oil paint. So if you know how to mix paint already, you know the basics of color, I'm going to show you how I lay down my paint and stuff, and then I'll show you how I apply it. Now, on a previous tutorial, as I was saying before, the thinner stretcher bars will tend to warp. This here, I'll show you the back of my canvas. It actually has two different stretcher bars, the base and the inside, and there's even a pole or a wooden pole that goes down the center of the canvas so it doesn't warp in the middle when you put paint down on it. Now, I got this at Michael's. It is very expensive. So if you want to pay market price, go there or go to some, well-known art supply store and do that. But there are ways to make your own canvases. It's fairly easy. From 2x4s, you cut them in half and you use a large staple gun and you staple it to the back with the canvas. The canvas is duck fabric. You can get them by the yards, and so that means bulk, and they're cheaper. And then I don't have an example of what you use on the front, but as you can see is hard and it's white. Duck fabric is yellow when you get it. Gesso, you apply it with a large paintbrush. As you can see, there's already white gesso on my brush because I use this one a lot for my gesso. It's just a primer basically so that the paint will stick to the canvas and not leak through the pores. Most of the time, I redo another coat over top of already made canvases because they don't put enough on there and it seeps through the back. Because I don't have gesso right now, you'll be able to tell that it will leak through the back of my canvas here because there's not enough on here. But um, I could work with that because I've been working with canvases like that many, many times. It's not a big deal. It's just you have to put more coats of paint onto the canvas for it to stay. Now, my medium. This here is called Liquin, and it comes in a glass bottle that you can take the lid off, and sometimes they stick, so you got to be very careful getting it around the seams of the edges, which I think mine's stuck, unfortunately. Hold on one sec. Oh, there it goes. But see, as you could tell, there's an insert that blocks the lid from the inside when you first open it, and mine got stuck. And it's really nasty. Um, you could tell when it starts going bad by it becoming looking almost like snot. Um, you don't want it like that. You want it thin and pliable. So when you put it down into your little thing here, you can mix it with your paint. And it's not coming out. Hold on one second. You want to shake it up a little bit if it's not running out, because this here it's all very, very runny. So you want it in a big glob like that on your palette or in your plastic container, whatever you decide to use. I prefer using a wooden palette or a glass palette. Glass palette's even better, because you can use a paint scraper and scrape that paint right off um, when you're done, and or you can seal it up with a container like this, and it'll keep your ink from curing, or your paint from curing, sorry. Another great thing that I've found very useful for painting and keeping your brushes from getting dirty and really icky and nasty is getting this Masters brush cleaner. As you can see, I use it a lot. It's kept my brushes from getting really, really nasty. Um, so, they only have a certain amount of time before they're completely gone. As you could tell, this one here, I've already tried using the Masters brush cleaner on it, but it's so nasty that there's no way I can save this. They only have a certain time that they can last. Let me show a good example of a brush. This one, for instance, I love this brush. It's very soft, but it really depends on how you do your painting. If you put on thick paint, you probably want to have a thicker paintbrush that's rougher. But I do a lot of dry brushing and layers upon layers, so it makes it look more natural and excuse me, more natural and real. When I paint mine, it's kind of it's a little bit of both techniques. Mine has overlaying layers, and then it also looks like it's made out of clay. So it almost looks real, but then not real at it. I just haven't gotten to that one full step where I've gotten enough detail that it looks like realism. But you'll be able to figure it out sooner or later. It just comes with, doing it a lot and figuring it out. So let's go from there, and I'm going to show you what paints I use, which they're over here. Oh, and Masters brush cleaner also, they also have a Masters hand cleaner, because this stuff gets on your hands. And I also have an apron that covers all the way down the front of me, including over top of my clothes and everything, because I get very, very dirty. I get into my work. Okay, so lamp bat, lamp black. Winsor Newton makes really great oil paints. Now, they come in smaller tubes too. It just depends on how many times you plan on painting, what it is you plan on painting, how large scale. Um, when I paint large scale, I usually paint from like 3 foot to 4 foot. The largest I've gone so far has been 5 foot by 6 foot. Um, Recently, I've been going smaller because it saves me paint, but it's actually harder to paint that way, and it takes me longer because I have to use smaller brushes for smaller detail. But my smaller paintings do look really, really, really nice with a major detail like that. The larger you go, the less detail you end up getting. So, lamp black I use for only my darkest darks, similar to when we were talking about charcoal with the K. This is my darkest dark. You do not use this to mix with the other paint for shading. Let's see if I can find my other black. The other black is Mars black. Wait, no, Ivory black. I'm sorry. I used to have a Mars black, which I used fairly a lot too. But okay, so what we have is lamp black or ivory black. Now, the difference between the two is lamp black is more blue than red, and ivory black is more red than blue. Your shadows are going to have more blue in them. So that's why you want to use lamp black versus ivory black for your darkest darks, which is your shadow areas. Ivory black is the one that you use with other paints to make a darker tone of that color. As you can see here. Okay. Now, there are two different types of white. One is your mixing white and one is your highlight. Just like you use blacks, but I don't usually tend to do that. I find that the the lighter white that you mix with your paint doesn't work for me the way that I do it. It doesn't give me the gradation of tonal values that I need or highlighted values that I need. Because I like bright highlights. So when you use titanium white, which is your highlight white, this one right here, and like I said, all my paints are Winsor Newton. You can get a different brand, but you'll notice that the the mixture of ratio of the painting quality to your medium quality, which, like I said, your medium is the liquid or paint thinner, which I'll get into later with the paint thinner. Um, but that's what you'll notice. You'll feel a difference in the texture of the paint and how it applies to your canvas. So I feel Winsor Newton is the or yeah, Winsor Newton is the best quality of paint that I've found so far. So, what do we have so far? We have your blacks, which I'm going to put ivory black down into my container. I'm only going to put a little bit because that's just your mixing black. I'm not going to put my lamp black down yet because I'm not going to get into my shadows until later. And I'm going to put a little bit of white, titanium white, down into my palette area. And again, make sure that you're watching what you're getting on the outside of your lids. As you can tell, I'm very, very dirty. So this is a poor example of paying attention to where the paint's coming outside. But what I usually do is I can tend to use pliers and take the lids off. Alright, so that's your white and your black. And then your basic colors. You don't need to get as many paint as I have. If you want to save time, that's a great idea, so then you don't have to keep mixing different paints to get a certain color that you want. But the colors that you really need is cobalt blue, cadmium red, and cadmium yellow. All of those you can mix together and make the other paints and mix it to whatever color you're trying to get from your image. Okay? And the way that I mix things is I look at this and put it up next to my canvas to a white. Now, that's why something that's see-through is a very good idea, because you can go like this and hold it up to your canvas and see if it matches that color on your photograph. So that's how I mix paint, and I'm fairly good at matching colors very, very well. But if anything's next to another object, like I said before, you have a cast shadow. Now, in painting, you gotta be aware that every color that's next to another color is going to reflect onto that other object. So say for instance you have here, her white shirt is not going to be completely white. You see blue on her arm, right right in here on her arm, there's a blue cast of light or color. Where is that coming from? Well, black, like I said earlier, has more blue in it. There's a lady in a black shirt right here, and it's casting from her onto her shirt. Same thing goes with all these. Okay, there's blue in here. This is pink, but it looks more purple over here, because when you add blue to red, you get purple or brown. Purple is actually the hardest color to mix, to be honest with you, because if you put more blue, you're going to end up with a brown. Um, it just depends on the color quality or the contrast or the amount of paint that you're using. Um, Sometimes it can be difficult to make that certain color that you're looking for. So like I said, it's very, very easy to just go run out and buy a paint that you need for that specific thing that you're doing. But you have to think about the cost of the paint, because the cost to whatever that you're doing could be a lot of money that you're forking out for just one project. You got to think about it in the long run. Am I going to use that color again for something else? And you could be like, okay, yeah, I paint enough that it makes sense to go out and buy that paint. Okay, so I said we need cadmium red, which that's not cadmium red. That is permanent rose. Here it is. Cadmium red. Alright, and then I'm going to put that aside. And then we need cobalt blue. If I can get it out of my handy dandy bag without everything falling over. As you can see, my setup has to be fairly large for the size that I'm doing. And unfortunately, I moved recently, and I forgot my easel. So if that's what you're wondering, Why am I sitting this thing on this instead of an easel? That's the reason. Um, but I mean, you can find pretty much anything to use as an easel as long as it stays up, of course. Where is it? There it is. Cobalt blue. And I don't have a lot of this color left, but I can use one of the other colors that are fairly close to this color and make pretty much about the same colors. And if this happens where it doesn't come off, you can use a palette knife. A palette knife is just a metal device. They come either stepped, where it looks like you can step down off the top of it, or they come flat, which I can't find. Oh, there it is. Here's a flat one. And you can also use these for painting too with, which I can get into later. You can apply it directly on your canvas without any medium. But the issue with that is you're wasting paint that way. Just be forewarned. The more liquid you use and add it to this and water it down, the less paint you're going to use. So the less money you're going to actually spend. So all I'm doing is scraping the paint right off and then dropping it down in here, which it accidentally got a little bit on my white, but that's okay. You can always take that out, that's no problem. And now the last color in this is our cadmium yellow. Now, what I want you to think about is always having some kind of paper towel nearby to scrape that paint off of your palette knife, if you're using a palette knife. It's best to have, paper towels handy as much as you can, or a towel nearby so you could just wipe it off of your hands. Because, like I said before, with charcoal, getting dirty, keeping yourself clean is the best idea so you don't get it elsewhere, all over the painting. Now, the difference between charcoal and oil painting is that charcoal will move around and spread, and you can't get it out sometimes if you push too hard. But with painting, oil painting, you can constantly rework it and go back in. You just have to know how much how long you can work on it before you overwork it. And I'll get into that in just a second after we apply our yellow down into our palette. Cadmium yellow. Okay. Whoops. There we go. Okay, and then one color I would like to add is Naples yellow, because for skin tones and lighter yellows, it's harder to make a skin tone. Don't buy the color that says skin tone, because that doesn't really come out looking like a skin tone, to be honest with you, because everyone's skin tone's different. I am more pink in my skin tone than some other people. They might have more yellow, they might have more purple, they might have more brown. So this is the best idea because it's in between all those colors. Um, so then you can mix it with another color and get the exact skin tone you're looking for. And I'll show you what that color looks like. Whoops. That wasn't supposed to happen. Eek. Okay. It's because of my liquid in here. So, um, but I don't know if you can, I'll hold this so it doesn't move again. But it's at the bottom right here. I put it in a really awkward spot so you can't really see it. But there it is at the bottom. Oh, there goes my canvas. Okay. Slide this right off again. Put it down. There we go. And grab my canvas after I move this. Hold on one second, I'm sorry. I know this isn't very fun right now because I haven't applied anything to the canvas, but I'm telling you though, learning all this stuff before you apply it is the best thing for you, because I didn't know half this stuff, like how to apply it, what to mix it with, and I just threw it on there and it became a muddy mess because I overworked it, didn't understand um, the difference between mixing and getting the right color. Okay, now, so when I'm applying this stuff, I gotta find a paintbrush that's gonna work fairly well for the beginning stages. So, a square brush that's a little bit harder in texture, made out of horsehair, which means it's naturally made hair. Real hair, not synthetic. Now, there's a thing called dry brushing. What you want to do is get a little bit of the ink or a little bit of the paint and apply it. So what I want to do is I want to go into my darkest areas first, because the highlights are what you want to apply at the very end, as well as the darkest darks. Um, so where do you begin? You begin from the back to the front, because you want everything that's in the back to be underneath, and then everything that's in the front to be sitting on top of the background. If you were to apply the stuff on the front first, it would look like the background sitting on top of the people. So you don't want that. Now, how do you start? So that means we said that the darkest areas have more blue than red. So you want to start with your blues first. And you're like, well, how do I know where to apply blue? Well, you can tell that there's blue in the windows, and that's from the reflection of the buildings across the street, or across of where these people are standing. Um, Not only that, but every single color has a slight hint of blue, no matter what you're looking at. Everything will have blue in it. Same goes with red. Everything will have red in it. And yellow. Um, which yellow and green mixed together makes green. Yellow and blue mixed together makes green. And, oh yeah, I forgot to get into, before you even start, we have a jar. Now, you want paint thinner, and you want to put this in your jar. This is for cleaning your brush in between colors. And you're going to want more than one paintbrush, of course, because you're going to have different sizes you need. Round brushes, square brushes, straight edged. Depends on what you're trying to do. But be careful with this paint thinner. It's very toxic. Do not get it on your hands. Do not eat anything. Do not drink anything while you're doing this. Okay. So, we're going to start first. I got my picture in my hand. We're going to start with a background. So the background is this right over here, because that's behind the buildings. So we want the building to be sitting on top of the background. And that's blue, which is nice, because now we can actually see where the blue's going. So we're going to take our paintbrush, take a little bit of the blue, and mix it with that liquid. You want to mix it so that it's very, very light. Okay. And I'm going to bring this down so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. And as you can see, it's very, very light. And this is the beginning stages of painting. Okay? And then after you do that, you want to take another brush, a smaller brush, and a harder brush, an even harder one than this. This here is a synthetic brush, and it's much harder, as you can see. You can hear that sound. That's what you want. So this is called dry brushing, pulling the paint down. When you hear that sound on the canvas, that means you're doing a good job at dry brushing. Bring it down. You don't want a seam between the paint. You do not want to be able to see the brush strokes. And this is called also wetting your canvas. And if it gets too wet, that means that you're overworking it and you can't go much further on the area you're working with because it's too wet. You have to let it cure overnight or a couple days before you can go back in and work on it again. And this gets much needed when you start doing other colors on top of other colors. Because if it's too wet, it's going to start looking like a muddy mess. Mixing blue and red together, and then putting yellow and all that stuff mixed with it will make it look brown, and that's what I'm talking about with a muddy mess. You don't want a muddy mess. You want it to look like your image that you're trying to paint. And this here is also giving us that gradation that we were doing with charcoal. When I was talking about charcoal with a K and the vine charcoal. As you can see, I'm going to bring the canvas over to you so you can see it. Now, this is going from dark to light. And I can see some areas that need improvement because I can see the brush strokes. And you don't want that. So you just go back over it again with your paintbrush, and it's like a little ticking of your paintbrush. You have to play around with it to understand what I'm talking about because it's all about the feel of pushing the paint into the canvas. Knowing how hard to touch the canvas is going to be up to you. Everyone has their own quality of their brush movement. No matter how much you try to get out those seams from your paintbrush strokes, you're not going to be able to. Um, you can try as much as you want, but you know, being an artist, a lot of artists want their brush stroke to show through because that is your signature style, and how you approach painting. A lot of people don't understand that and they're like, oh, well, I don't care. I wanted to look like a photograph. I wanted to look how I wanted to look. But some people can't paint like that. They can only paint a certain way. That is their style. Hey, ball, come on. Sorry about that. My dog's trying to get into stuff he shouldn't. He's gonna end up eating things he's not supposed to. Okay, so this is what I was telling you about before. Cleaning your brushes in between the areas that you're painting. That's what paint thinner's for. It thins the paint off your brushes and off of everything that you're doing. And then you just have that paper towel handy or a towel handy, and you wipe those brushes down as good as you can and do the little dry brushing technique where you rub it down into the paper towel so it dries. It takes all that paint thinner out, because if you were to put a wet paintbrush with paint thinner on your paint, it'll make it run down your canvas, and you don't want that at all. Okay, so that's the basic steps of painting. Now, um, you got to pay attention to also the color quality in your image. So if it's dark up here, you're going to want it dark down here, or just pay attention to the color. So down here is actually darker on my image than it is up here. So you got to pay attention to that, because if you make this area darker and this lighter, then you're not making it look like your photograph. You're just, improvising, or you're trying to make it look the way you want it to look instead. It just depends, like I said, what you're trying to go for and what do you want it to look like. Do you want it to look like the actual photograph you're painting from, or do you have an artistic purpose behind why you're changing the colors, the way you're doing it? Why are you choosing the colors that you are? Um, Basically. Okay, so I'm gonna let you go. Um, that's that's basically an advanced tutorial about painting so far. Dry brushing we did, and we talked about how to set up our palette. Um, and again, when we did the transfer process, I noticed like a lot of things didn't transfer over to my canvas that I can see in my photograph. Again, because you can always rework this, you can fix those little minor setbacks, um, just by, because you have certain lines that are there that show you something that's supposed to be there, but something's missing. Like here, for instance, when I drew this out, um, over on this side of my image, it looks like a big blob because I couldn't tell um, where the lines were on this side and what was going on over here. But I can later on fix this and show that there's a woman sitting here on a chair. Um, there's a person sitting over here in the background, and that's the coat. And I'm missing that on that side of the canvas, and that's the reason why it looks kind of funny over here on my right hand side of the canvas because I couldn't tell where the lines were for that. And if you're not good at drawing, you can just use that as you know, change it into something else. Um, make it look like it's a wall or something over here. Um, just play around with it if you can't figure out how to draw those areas. Again, it's a painting and it's just a representation of what you're looking at or your imaginative approach to a subject matter. So you don't have to paint it exactly the way it is in real life. I mean, you could change it. You could do what you want with it. And that's what makes art, to me, worthwhile to do. Um, because you get to show the world what you see and how you view it. Um, you get to tell people how you feel about things and what you'd like to do. And it's all about interacting with other people, interacting with your environment, interacting with yourself, your family members, your friends. And that's what this project is all about for me, is getting those military dependent children out there and seeing what's available to them to be able to talk to other people, to open up. Even though you're moving around all over the place, there's people that are having similar experiences as you, not knowing where they can go to get help for certain things with their art. Um, n- Understanding what tools to use. I mean, it was crazy when I first started because I didn't know anything about color until I got into college. And it's a big aspect of art, understanding color and how it relates to people, how people relate to colors, um, the design, artwork, everything. Um, and understanding color will make you understand photography better. It'll make you understand graphic design better. Um, it also helps you relate to other people better because you can ask them, say, hey, what do you feel about the color red? Or what do you feel about the color blue or the color yellow? What is it about those colors that you do like or you don't like? What do you associate when you look at them? Um, and how do you feel about certain subject matter in real life? I mean, maybe you're um, you love the idea of patriotic art, but you don't want to do patriotic art because you feel bad because you are a dependent child and your parents are in the military and you feel disappointed because you're getting a poor educational quality or you're not getting enough experience to other people that understand art and you're taking it out on your parents because you have to move around all the time and you're losing friends because you don't want to make another friend, you're just going to have to move around. Well, to me, that's why this program is so necessary. For you to be able to make friends, for you to be able to make professional networking work for you while you still move around, you being able to understand the tools you're working with and everything. So if you like what you see that I'm doing, feel free to contact me on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is melchamp87 at gmail.com. Feel free to contact me, and I will definitely tell you about my experiences a little bit more as being a military child. Because it was hard. It was very hard understanding color and having to do my whole portfolio myself. That's hard. Not having somebody to critique your work and then finding out that you are good. You just are missing some steps in your professional development. Um, well, this has been great. You have a wonderful time working with your artwork, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. And I will definitely do a tutorial on stuff. If there's something that you feel that I need to get into a little bit more, let me know. I will definitely do one for you. You have a great day.